Mother-in-law thought she was clever when she showed up in a bridal gown, so we made her part of the entertainment. This story happened about 12 years ago when one of my best friends was about to get married. She and her fiancé, let's call him Joe, had been together for about 3 years when they decided to finally get married. Joe's mother-in-law is a horrible person. I have no other words to describe her but horrible. And obviously she and my friend didn't get along. When she heard about the wedding, she went ballistic. She really didn't want her son to get married, especially with that kind of woman. My friend and I met at a theater company, and in the theater, there are a lot of LGBTQ members, and sometimes kind of funny and weird people, and this is something that MIL disapproved of. Besides, Joe was an only child, his parents had divorced a long time ago, and since my friend's family lived in another state, that meant they had to travel out of the city often, and so Mill would be more alone. Joe's mom made things very difficult. She would pick up fights out of nowhere against my friend, let's call her Clara, and always made very snarky remarks about her body. She had breast implants and used to go to the gym regularly. She would compare her with some of Joe's exes or clients, as he is a physical trainer, and say, I mean, they are fit, but they are also natural. We are not completely sure, but we heard that she started a rumor saying that Clara had been a sex worker before getting her job at the theater, using her old services. So it came to a point where it was just unbearable for Clara to keep visiting Joe's mom, so Joe started going alone. When the wedding was only a few weeks away, and Joe made it very clear that he was still getting married, things kind of calmed down for a moment, although it was suspiciously calm. So one day, Joe goes to see his mom, and while she's still getting ready, the cleaning lady tells Joe that she recently found an invoice receipt for a wedding gown in a bridal shop. The cleaning lady, using her common sense, thought the invoice belonged to Joe because it was a bridal gown in white, and she gave it to him directly, and he didn't remember what wedding gown, since Clara had already chosen another white dress that was not a wedding gown, but it was only white. So instead of asking his mom about the invoice, he told Clara. Clara immediately knew what was on. They kept investigating, and they found out that MIL had gone to a bridal shop and got a cheap wedding gown for herself to wear at the wedding. The cleaning lady found the dress in the closet and told Joe over the phone. So Clara calls me and her 2 bridesmaids to ask what she should do. She wanted to go straight to Mill's house and tell her that she knows all about it and that she either wears another dress or she gets uninvited. But then we convinced her that even if she's busted now, the day of the wedding, she would still try to pull something out and probably make things worse. So it's best to let her think that her plan is going on well, but make it play against her. Keep in mind, we are less than 2 weeks away from the wedding, and there aren't really many changes that you can make by then. Clara didn't want an altercation during her wedding, and Joe had many problems with his mom, so she didn't want this to become an even bigger problem. So I went on to hire 2 entertainers for the wedding, for about 1 or 2 hours. I knew a drag queen actor at the theater, and he worked at a drag show, so I asked him to get 2 drag queens who had a wedding gown disguise, or they would make something very similar to a wedding gown in less than 2 weeks. I did tell them the whole story, so they accepted more for the tea than for the money really. We hired them for 2 hours to entertain the guests at the wedding and bring a bit of the theater flair. The day of the wedding comes, and Mill texts that she's running a bit late, but on time for the ceremony, because she didn't want to get sent back home to change. She shows up in a white gown, and I kid you not, a little white hairpiece that resembles a tiny white veil. The ceremony happened, so everyone saw her in white, and she does appear in the pictures along with Clara, looking smug. But then, at the reception, in the middle of dinner, the 2 new drag brides appeared, calling themselves the Bridal Cheerleader Squad, making little comedy skits, and congratulating the couple. Mill went livid. The actors made such a great role. There weren't any masters of ceremony, so they kinda took that role. They introduced, very courteously, all the people who gave speeches, brought in the cake, all in good faith, and as soon as they crossed paths with MIL, they started joking about how MIL was part of the Bridal Cheerleader Squad. They even took pictures with her, and she tried to look like she was having a good time, but we could see she was miserable. I cannot tell you how her face changed. She never looked happy for the rest of the wedding. So yeah, the bride and groom, and every guest, danced with the actors. The actors stayed for the rest of the reception, because open bar, and Mill stayed seated for most of the event.